All right, so it's on. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first ever podcast hosted by me and Garry Gilliam. Here we'll be talking about subjects regarding education, philosophies of life, world changing ventures, innovation, and sustainability. To introduce myself, my name is Samy. I've been working in content creation and marketing ever since I was 15 years old. That's also the age when I dropped out of high school in order to teach myself how to run a business, marketing, and pursue life experience in the industries mentioned above. Now, 5 years later, I founded a startup in education. We're not happy with the educational system now. Not a lot of people are. And so our purpose is to build an online school that people would actually be happy with. A school filled with wisdom and practical knowledge that is relevant, delivered in interesting, engaging, and non-boring ways. Here with us, we have Garry, who is driven by the same fire to create an impact onto the world. He transitioned from tackling his opponents as a football player in the NFL to tackling the world's problems by changing the way we see real estate in big cities. Hello, Garry. How are you doing?
Shoot, I am sensational. Excited for this first episode. A little bit more about myself. Yeah, I'm a football player, I guess, if you could say that. But that is definitely not who I am, more what I do. Right. So beyond that, though, went to a private boarding school growing up for orphans. I'm not an orphan, but the school itself was for families below the poverty line. Went on to play football at Penn State, where I also triple majored in business development, advertising, and psychology. And then went on to play in the NFL for the Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. And now I am the CEO and founder of a for-purpose real estate development company called The Bridge, where we actually acquire old schools, malls, warehouses, and land and convert them into mixed-use developments that we call eco-villages that essentially has a space for the local community to work, eat, live, learn, and play all in one space. So happy to be here. Happy to get this podcast going and learn more and talk more.
Wow, that's fantastic. You have one of the most amazing CVs in the world. Having three majors, being an NFL player, and now doing something as great as what you're doing with the Bridge. Maybe if you could please start by telling us more about your venture with the Bridge and what your vision is for the future.
Yeah, well, shoot, my vision for the future is a peaceful one. It's filled with love and unity, right? Which kind of sounds utopian, but the Bridge is kind of a step in that direction. Really, at the core of it, changing culture. Unlearning, this way of life, this way of living on a global society standard, meaning just very selfish, super profit driven, not so much focused on people, and definitely not focused on the planet, right? So trying to unlearn that way of thinking and relearning another way of thinking, and like I said, reestablishing a new culture, because I think that is the most sustainable thing to do. So as it pertains to the Bridge, you got to walk it like you talk it. And if you want to change the world, you got to start with the man in the mirror, right? So that's exactly what I did was, address myself and then figured out ways that could be palatable, replicated to other people, to possibly follow that blueprint, to become their version of successful or self-sufficient, contribute back to their communities. But before you can get to any of those things, you do got to take care of basic needs, right? So food, shelter, and water, safety, security, love, and belonging, right? These things are they have to be core to a revolution, or there's really no substance to it. It can't be sustained, because as much as you'd want to inspire a local community to build businesses and grow their own food, if they're still focused on just trying to provide shelter for themselves, right, then it's kind of in one ear and out the other. So as much as we want to think, into the future and generationally and build those things, we also have to realize we got to take care of our basic needs here and provide those basic needs and resources for a community. Because as you do that, that community itself is what provides the innovation, the research, the development, the forward thinking. That's what happens. Those entities, those individuals, when provided those resources, do that for you. So my vision of the future is providing resources for the brilliant humans that are on Earth, and creating an environment that empowers them, and it promotes self-sufficiency, because then I think we'll get the best solutions, right? A lot of the best solutions are born out of the people who have been involved in those problems themselves. So if you provide those individuals with resources, they'll provide solutions, so more people don't have to necessarily go through that type of situation, which I think is good. So
Yeah, exactly. Especially if you teach the people to do that since they're young. A young person's brain is a very powerful brain. I mean, if you take take that giant computer, which is the brain, and you give it the right algorithms, and then you point it at the world's problems, especially if they're experiencing them, then there's no telling of what the future will look like in terms of upside potential. If you teach kids how to innovate, how to think critically, you nourish their creativity, instill discipline, empower them to believe in themselves. If you collectively teach that to the masses, causing them to adopt these healthy models of behavior and thought, then there's no telling of what they will do when they grow up, the things they will invent, the world they will create. This very utopian view that you were talking about is very possible. And so, how are you planning to provide these resources with a bridge?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to something that one of my high school football coaches would always say. Coach Garry, he would always say, take care of the little things and the big things will take care of themselves. Mm-hmm. Right. So right in line with that is like providing the picks and the shovels for the gold rush, like this, providing the one play at a time, one thing at a time, taking care of the little things. Right. And I think that is those basic needs for people, like housing and food, education, access to clean resources and healthcare, right? Some of these things are extremely important and they're not given to everybody in an equal way. So before we can start to talk about, racism and like full oppression and like apartheid and genocide, like these are major human issues. Let's track it back though. Like, how do we start to rework this thing? Because this is happening. It's been happening for a while. So in similar fashion, how do we take what other small things that can take care of those big things? Again, I think that's culture. I think as a globe, as a humanity, as a species, if you will, if we all vibrate on that same wavelength of like, all right, let's take care of the little things of what I'm saying are the basic needs of individuals, right? The food, the shelter, the water, the education, right? If everybody has the focus to provide those basic needs for their local community, then the likelihood of some of these bigger issues happening, like the racism, the oppression, the genocide, a lot less likely to be happening because you've got a quote unquote educated or woke, I don't like that term, but just self-sufficient community that realizes, we're not easily fooled. We understand our value, in this society, in this community, because you've provided us with that education. Like you've educated us on how to provide our own food and create our own businesses. So you're not going to you can't oppress a group of people who realize that they can build their own things, right? You can't be racist against a group of people who see their value too, right? Like my skin tone or my hair or the way my eyes look means like excellence, right? Because you are excellent. All humans are excellent. And it's just a matter of us providing basic needs so you can then get to that level of excellence, right? Which makes me think of this quote here. Talent is evenly distributed, but resources and opportunity are not. So let's take care of those small basic things, the resources, and then those big, huge global humanity issues will slowly start to subside, right? That's what I think.
That's very important what you said there, because there was this big economist that was saying that the easiest solution, the best solution and quickest solution for fighting climate change is not doing anything, not starting with anything climate change related, but also about helping the economy grow, helping the people who are below the poverty line go above it, because the masses, the people who don't have enough money to pay their bills, they don't have enough money to buy their food, they're not going to care about climate change up until they get their food first. They need to be able to take care of themselves and then take care of the planet later. So in order for you to get to those big problems, we need to solve it at the level of the individual, at the level of the family. You need to empower these people to help themselves so they can work on helping the rest of the planet.
Yeah, nailed it. Exactly. Because as much as, you want to go into the hood or the most impoverished places in the world and talk about solar panels and water collection and composting and eating less animals and, some of these things, like just to even say those things is a privilege. Like you're stable enough and in the top 1% of humanity to even think that, because there's a lot of people who are just trying to get food, let alone say, oh, I don't want to eat meat. Like, bro, I don't have a choice. This is what I'm going to eat, like, you feel me? So like, as much as those behaviors do affect Earth and the environment, it's still a product of what we are doing in our inefficiencies as a society to allow those type of processes to have to continue to happen, right? Factory farming or the pumping of oil out of earth and burning it and creating, fossil fuel, like those things don't need to happen. We have the sun, like if we create the more efficient solar panels, like that stuff works. But like, again, you can't get there until you start taking care of people's food. So there is going to be a common ground, a bridge, if you will, because those people who are in that generational thinking, they got to meet the people who are still trying to take care of their physiological needs, right? But the two need to come together because there's an extreme gap between the two, and once they come together is when the most efficient, long-lasting, beneficial, systemic solutions will come about, right? Because you get viewpoints from different things, right? Essentially, we are all different physical perspectives of the same consciousness.
Yep.
All physical perspectives of the same consciousness. So in order for us to solve some of these these massive human global issues, we need everyone at the table because we bring different perspectives, right? That's important.
It is. And what are some of the problems that you see, and how are you planning on, tackling them?
Sure. I mean, you can pick one. Let's just pick one, because there's a ton, but you can only eat an elephant one bite at a time. Not that you should be eating elephants, but you get the point.
What do you see as the biggest problem standing in between you and managing to bring all the beautiful things that you're doing with the bridge?
The biggest problem, I would say time, right? People need help yesterday. And, we've got together a model, we've got together a nice team. The team is growing, capital is coming in, right? Our main campus is about to start construction, which once that does, is it'll be a catalyst for just a cascade of empowerment, right? Not just in the area that it's in, but then how it will replicate after that. So the biggest issue would be time, just because it takes time to build bridges. It takes time to provide these resources. It takes time to develop and coordinate and make your affiliations and your partners. And then, that takes time. And while that's going on, there are people starving, not getting the proper education, not getting the proper health care, having mental health issues. Like, all these problems are still going on. So that's the issue, like seeing the problem, having a solution, but realize there's still a time that it takes to get, it built. This takes patience, right? So you just have to have patience, diligence. And then again, as I stated, you just got to take care of those little things, and the big things will take care of themselves, right? As much as you want a bridge in a bunch of different locations to help the local community, you got to take care of just this thing right here. Let's take care of this little thing right here. What is that little thing, right? Phase 1 of our main campus project that'll be starting construction said date, and this is the completion date, right? Let's focus on that. Still knowing what the major objective is on a global standpoint, but realizing you got to take care of this little thing first, right? So it still parallels with what we talked about before. But to answer your question and to sum it all up, would be time, because people need help yesterday.
Time. That's very important. For us with our school, I think our biggest problem is you were saying back then, you were saying that people see it, then they have the solution, but you need time. For us with our educational system right now, most of us don't even see it. We don't even have enough awareness raised up until now. And I think the biggest problem will be introducing these subjects into public high schools and universities around the world. Governments move slow. So there we go with time as well. And that's even if they move at all. But the way I want to go about this problem is by raising awareness on the significance of the issue, on the gravity of the whole situation, because people don't see it, and then on what a great investment that will be for our world government. Because you see, what destroys us is now what looks like it's obviously threatening. Illegal drugs are obviously dangerous compared to cigarettes and obesity, for example. The mortality rate on drugs is incredibly high. It's almost guaranteed that if you consume heroin, your tolerance will increase so much that at some point you either stop or go to overdose. But with smoking, the mortality rate is much smaller. You probably know someone who smoked their whole life and lived up to 90. But guess what? 480,000 people die due to cigarettes every year, while only 70,000 people die due to drugs. Which drugs, you might ask? Well, not heroin, not one, not two, but all drugs. The amount of people that die from consuming cigarettes is 7 times bigger than the amount of people that die from consuming any of all illegal drugs combined. That's heroin, amphetamine, opioids, and so on. Cigarettes are a silent killer. Obesity is a silent killer that takes 7 times more lives than drugs do. So where am I going with this? Well, what else is a silent killer? How about the fact that we don't have a financial education classes? How does that affect our society, you might ask? We don't have the numbers for obvious reasons, but think, how many people are in terrible financial situations in their 40s because they didn't know what to do with their money in their 20s? How many out of these people do you think would have been saved by this knowledge? How many do you think have resorted to taking bad actions in order for them to gain, to have monetary gain? How many families do you think have been destroyed by divorce just because people didn't learn how to communicate, how to set boundaries, how to decide what to look for in a partner? How many people do you think cry on their deathbeds because about the fact that they wasted their life in a job they hated because they didn't have a discover your passion course in their high school? How many people kill themselves because they didn't know how to handle their mental health issues? They were too afraid to ask for help. Nobody gave it to them. If installed earlier, could mental health and emotional intelligence classes have prevented people from killing themselves or prevented them from slipping into the rut that put them there in the first place? You know, recognizing your traumas and working to heal them, implementing healthy patterns of thinking and would certainly help. They all help. The communication class that facilitates friends matches could have helped someone take a friend that would have gotten them out of this. Or maybe if they discovered the passion and they felt like they had a purpose, they would have done something. Do a cost benefit analysis on that. These classes and many others do so much more than geography does, or physics, or chemistry. It can save lives or help them be better. And that's just one of the problems that it solves on the short term. As I said previously, we have no idea what are the heights a proper educational system can take us to. Empower people and see what they will do, man. There's no upper limit to that. And I think more and more people need to see this. More and more people need to start asking for this because we don't see this as such a big problem for now.
Hey, spot on. Spot on. Education is extremely important. Knowledge is important. And if for nothing else, to be self-sufficient. Like if you were to lose everything but your mind and the education you got, you should be able to build yourself back up to where you were. You know, like that's important, you know, but you got to get those intangibles of experience and of knowledge and of education, which has been strategically taken and limited to a lot of people, like 99% of the world, you know. And then after you get, but this is the other side of it, right? Because you do see a lot of people that will go and get the knowledge, the education, right? My entire boarding school was based on exactly what you just said, providing these resources, the education, so that we can make the proper choices, decisions, and have access to these things when we become adults. But unfortunately, a lot of the kids that come from that boarding school end up failing out of or dropping out of college. It's like, well, so it's not just education. Education is definitely the start of it, but then it's applied education and experience too, right? Like you can be as educated as you want to be and super confident in the world, right? You could be a boxer that's going out there and you did all your training, you got all your stuff right, but maybe you're not. Maybe you're confident, right? And you about to go fight Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson, right? And you're confident, super confident, because you've got the education, right? You've done all the training. But if you don't apply it and you're not competent in it, right? Not just confident, but competent. I don't know, right? It's not just about knowledge. It's about applied knowledge. And then you get those experiences and then you adjust and you become a skilled sailor, right? That's the loop. But it starts with education, 100%.
Yeah. And you know, the fact that you need to apply the knowledge should be part of the educational system. Because as we were talking about back then, so being a very skilled programmer, which is what you learn in computer science major, that will give you skills and confidence in the programming world. But what will actually affect your competence is also the mindset that you have behind it. How you manage to, if you feel like you're being paid enough. if you feel like if you have good mental health, if you have good connections with your families, if you're having toxic relationships, you can be the best programmer in the world. You just had a fight with your wife or with your kid or with your girlfriend, and then you're going to perform badly. A person that has a very healthy mindset and they have healthy relationships and they feel like they're well paid and so on, they're in the proper place, but they have less education when it comes to programming, they'll perform better that day and that week and that year if you look at it consistently. So I think universities should not just teach people that skill, but it should also teach people how to apply the skill. All the things that a well-rounded human needs to have.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. It's a village. It's holistic. It's the education, the knowledge, the applied knowledge, the environment, the culture to want to get better. I think that's another thing of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You've got the food, the shelter, and water. There's physiological needs, safety, security, love and belonging, right? I think does then lead to self-esteem 100%. Like love and belonging to me is part of culture. Like if you bring your report card home and you've got, C's and an F on it, but mom or dad or brother or uncle doesn't say anything about it, and you're like, oh, all right, I guess this is our family. Like this is our culture. Like we're cool with this. But on the other side of it, if you bring that home and mom's like, whoa, A, that's it. A, and that's from the beginning. Like we all start out with the same knowledge, nothing, and then you learn, right? Some people have different capacities and what have you, IQs, but like basic stuff like 1 2 3 4 and ABC and red, green, yeah, like that stuff. That's the parents before you get to 4 years old in preschool. That's the parents, having in their mind, all right, our family culture is you will be educated, right? And I think you see that across ethnicities, right? Like in Asian cultures, you see things like that, pushing education. But unfortunately, in like Black American cultures, you're getting more pushed toward athletics, or like some of those things. So then you start to see like these stereotypes that, hey, Black people are better in athletics and Asians are, better in math or something. It's like, well, what, is there some truth behind it? Like, are there some numbers that do start to come from it? Well, like where'd those numbers come from though? It came from culture. Like, there's not an either or. Like if you want to be great in athletics, I mean, yeah, you might not be massive and big and have this or that. Doesn't mean you're not athletic and can't do sports that, gymnasts are not 6'6", 300 pounds. And like, you can still become a professional athlete if that's what you want to do. But then also like, don't neglect the other side, the classroom, the mathematics, the science, the human skills, right? I don't like calling them soft skills, like the human skills, like the ability to communicate and empathize with people, like not just be a robot and go out there and play football or something like. But that again is established by mom and dad and the family, the culture, and then it gets reinforced as you go out to the real world and come back with these different ideals and things, and your family readjusts. You're like, we don't do that, and this is what we do, and this is why, right? And I think that global, like I keep harping on culture because it's important. Like it's about unity and a global consciousness. Like, again, we're all different perspectives. So doesn't mean you can't, be pushing toward the same, objective of love and peace, but, wear a different hat of religion. Like, nah, it's fine. You got your different perspective. I got mine, but we're still pushing toward the same common goal, which is unity, love, peace, like happiness. Like that's what people want. That's what we strive for. So we can experience life in its fullness and be happy with it and have families and, like not this world that we've created of like, oh, I got to go to work in the morning to go work at a job that, I'm only working a job so that I can get money to pay for the car that I had to drive to work in. And then it sat in the parking lot and then it sits in my house that what I'm saying? Like, not saying you don't need those things, but let's step back and like get out of the rat race a little bit. Like, what is the point of life? It's really to experience life. And like, that's not working like that for 60 years to retire to. Nah, I don't think that's it. I think there's a global like kink. The frequency isn't right. And I think we feel that. I think Earth feels that. I think humanity feels that, which is why like there's like a flux, like like where there's hurricanes and stuff going on. But again, it gets back down to the core of it. Why could some of these climate change things be going on? Because of certain processes, right? Or certain things that we as an industrial species use or do, or the processes that we've allowed to go on because our culture has allowed it. right? Our global culture. Yeah, there's subcultures within each, but we allow certain things to go on. We are creators. Humans have created everything you see around you. We created it was in someone's head at some point. But you can influence what's in someone's head by culture.
Yeah, and
Inputs and outputs.
it's very important what you're saying, and also it's important that we learn these things in school. Yeah, you learn them with your parents. I personally don't think that every single person learns that in their home. I don't think every single person learns how to socialize properly, how to communicate properly. They don't learn how to think positively and critically and all that. And I think that's all the more important that we start to learn these things in high school rather than learn, geography or physics or chemistry. And not that these subjects are not important, but back before, like one of the things that made me drop out of high school was the fact that I was talking to this teacher and I was telling her, why don't we learn financial education? Why don't we learn what is a loan? Why don't we learn, how to discover our passions and what to do with our lives? And she goes, yeah, well, you study history and these things here at school for 7 hours a day. And then in your own time, after you do your homework and you study for the exams, you can study and learn how to live life, in your own free time. And that was just crazy. I was like, hey, why don't we learn how to live our life in school and then we study geography or physics or chemistry in our own time if we're really interested? Just, the opposite. Am I crazy for thinking that this should be the other way around?
No, I mean that makes sense. That makes sense. It does. No, you're right. You're right. And it doesn't have to be either or. I think there is a morph of it, you know.
Yeah. There should be a balance in between them. I don't want to. I'm not saying that learning, understanding how matter functions around us, or learning how to calculate, or understanding our history is not important. I'm just saying that we need to prioritize and also introduce the things that are right in front of us, like you were saying. We need to see the bigger picture. We need to understand the universe and think more radically and so on. But we also need to see what is in front of us. And what is in front of us is people that don't know what to do if their sister is in a toxic relationship or if their friend is in a toxic relationship, if it's abused. They don't know what to do, how to handle being depressed. They don't know how to, they don't even understand what a loan is and what the terms for a loan are and how mortgages work and what are the differences between buying and renting when it comes to the pros and cons. They don't understand all of these things. That's in front of them. They're going to be subject to take this decision at some point. They're going to ask themselves at some point, should I marry? When should I marry? Should I have kids? How many kids should I have? They don't have any data or any decision-making processes that they can get inspired from in school that could help them for taking these decisions. And these are very important. They're more important than knowing how tall Mount Everest is or in what date some king lived and died.
Touche. Hey, I can't even argue with you. I agree. There's a lot of fat that needs to be trimmed in our current education system, and then some actual substance added. I agree, no doubt. More efficient things, things that can be applied, like you said, things that are right in front of us. Yeah. And then the question is why? Like that's not so mind blowing. That makes sense. So like why wasn't or isn't our education set up in that way?
Well, there's a lot of conspiracy theories about this one. My favorite one is the one with the Industrial Revolution. People needed engineers. People needed people that can work. The government needed people that can work in factories. Also, back in the day, this was the information that was most necessary to have because you had more or less everything figured out. You knew you're going to live, you're going to go to university, you're going to have a job, and you're going to get a mortgage on a house, you're going to have a family. It's all figured out. You're not going to be gay. you're gonna be this, you're gonna be that. You know, back in the day, like the woman is this, the man is this. Everything was much more simple, and the information you needed to know, like that information that we now take for granted, which is how tall is a mountain. I can just ask Siri right now and stuff like that. Back then, you would need to go into these books and blah blah blah. And also, it was a shift. Before, we would take the fact that we know when we need to marry and we know what we will do with our life for granted, but we wouldn't take information like we would see intelligence, and geography, history, that's what intelligence, how intelligence was measured. That was the premium knowledge that you could get back then. But now these have been reversed. It's much more complicated now. Sexual education is much more complicated now. All of these things are, you don't know if you should have kids. Climate change is happening. What are you gonna do? How all like the terrible financial situation that the millennials are in. So they need the information that back then the baby boomers inherited, but they don't need the information that the baby boomers needed before. And so, the world changed, but the education system hasn't. And so we need to have our education system adapt. And that's what I'm trying to do with the school.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, if you look at a lot of the different systems, they've all advanced and adjusted and have innovated. But if you look at the way that, a classroom is set up and how education was, back in the 1800s, it's the same as it was or as it is today. And like, I don't think it's got to evolve. It's got to, because the world around us has evolved, which means the way we learn, the access to information, our ability to get some of these things, you don't need a full semester on these. Like, we have as a species made it so we can become more efficient with our inputs and then our outputs. But if our inputs are still these basic things from the 1800s that we can just Google real quick, then our outputs are going to continue to be basic and we're going to get left behind. There's going to be a bigger gap in where we need to be as a species. Right. So yep. I agree.
And that's the problem. The problem. Why hasn't this changed exactly? Because it's so important. We have MacBooks and all sorts of things. But it's again back to what you were saying with culture. I heard this quote: "For as long as a dead tree is worth more than a living tree, we're still gonna have a problem." And same here. There's not a lot of money in the educational sector. That's one. So people don't really see. You don't really get a lot of innovators be attracted to this industry. They're more attracted to tech and engineering and all of these finance and all of these other more money-making industries. And also, besides that, the people that are in power now are the people for which the educational system has worked.
It's worked for them. They still live under the impression that the system is good, so they don't need to change anything.
The first people for which the educational system hasn't really worked well is the millennials. And now we see the Gen Z, for which it's really going bad. I mean, ever since social media has started being a thing, suicide rates have increased threefold. And we have nothing in our educational system doing something about it.
But none of the people in power can yet relate or understand the problem, which is what you need in order to come with a proper solution.
All we have is maybe, hey, speak to someone if there's a problem, call this number, but nobody's going to do that. Not a lot of people are going to do that. We need to speak to them into their language. These people were born into the digital era, and they need to be taught in the Gen Z language. They need to be understood. They need to feel like they're understood, and they need to be communicated with as such.
Yeah, and I think let's look at social media as a drug, right? Like, drugs have to go through approval processes and testing and studies, and they got to see what the side effects and things are, and then they can possibly have antidotes or whatever is needed, right? Social media didn't get a chance to go through that, right? We are the guinea pigs of it, and that side effect is extreme mental health issues, right? You can't turn off bullying. You can't. And as much as we like to say sticks and stones may break our bones, but words will never hurt us. Like, nah, we are social beings. Words do hurt because they have meaning behind them, and then it changes the way people look at us and interact with us. That love and belonging starts to get stripped away, right? Our self-esteem starts to go down. We feel as though we can't contribute to those around us, let alone ourselves, right? The mental health starts, becoming an issue, and then we get to these diseases of despair, right? The alcohol use, the drug use, right? The suicides, right? That's where that comes from. And so not just to focus on a fire without, kind of looking at an accelerant and providing a solution for it. I agree that there does need to be something in school that literally talks about how to cope with this concentrated social interaction of social media, right? And not to say that someone even has the answer for it. It's going to be a flexible, kind of movable, living thing that we as a society are going to have to start, figuring out, because it's never turned off, ever. Yeah. And I that could be a good thing, right? When it comes to education and access to information, but then on the social level, it could certainly be an issue, no doubt, right? So using it in a healthy manner is important. I think if people look at social media as less of a social platform and more of an educational platform, then they might have less of those mental health issues, right? They may come across some of these, these tools, these picks, these shovels, these little things that could take care of some of the big things, right? Like, why, at the end of the day, like, why would I care what this kid in class is saying to me? Like, and when you're a kid, it's hard to think that way. Like, why would I care? Well, like, oh, I don't have any friends anymore. Like, bro, when you get older, you don't want a bunch of friends anyway. Like, chill, like, just like, so like but that then comes from the village. It comes from the OG uncle talking to the young skill, right? Like, bro, let me holler at you, bro. Like, you feeling this way, I get it, but like this, I felt that way, and this is what you should be focused on. Like that village, that passing of teachings and information, to your point, right, is extremely important, because people, like, any problem that you're currently going through, somebody else went through it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So like, if someone's saying something bad to you on social media, like, I had to deal with it myself as a professional athlete, and I know it gets to you because it got to me. You go and miss a block or something, and the whole world, as it feels like the whole world is definitely not watching, but it feels like the whole world is watching.
Stadium, the whole world is watching,
right? And you miss a block, and especially at my position, you don't just miss a block. You miss a block, the quarterback's going to get smacked, and they're going to know where it came from. Like, that's you. So people in this day and age of social media, like, can hop literally as they're watching the game, see me miss a block at me on social media. You are the worst offensive lineman to ever exist in the face of the earth. You should go kill yourself. Like,
yeah. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. And it's like, wait, like, you, like, there's a human on the other side of what you just said. And like, as much as I would like normally, of course, people are always, thinking what they're going to think as fans in the heat of a moment. But before, it was just thoughts. They didn't have the accessibility to literally be able to communicate. Whether I follow you or don't follow you, those notifications, they do come up, and you can see them. And whether you're seeing them or not, your family sees them. And that was one thing I saw too. Like, my girlfriend and my mom, like, they're seeing some of these things that are getting written. It's starting to take on in their mental health, and they're starting to get riled up. And it's like, yo, like, sticks and stones, right? Let's remember that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, but again, I'm telling you, as an adult that went through it and a professional athlete, yes, it weighs on you. Because then I start questioning myself, like, wait, am I not a good player? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, do I? So it's 1000%. So we got to address it. I think it's going to be more of like, conversations, like, or people slowly starting to realize that social media is just a highlight reel of people's lives, and to not take it so seriously. You know what I'm saying? Like, and just kind of slowly it'll happen. But the drug of social media that was dropped, we were definitely not prepared for it. And I think we're seeing a lot of very negative side effects, especially as it relates to those diseases of despair, mental health issues, a lot of those things. But social media could be very positive, especially with what we're talking about as it relates to education and education platforms. So I don't think that is going to go anywhere, because we're going to continue to innovate. But that is certainly a societal issue, is the way that can affect people's minds constantly. It literally can't be turned off. You can't turn the internet off.
Yep.
So maybe giving other outlets too, like, hey, look, literally unplug, like go hop out, by the waterfall, listen to the water, the ions from that, let that heal you, bless over you, get different frequencies, do some grounding. You know what I'm saying? Like there's other literally earth type things you can do to relieve some of the, the mental pressures of the society that we've created as humans. Earth has provided the antidote to us, and it's to unplug and go and enjoy nature a bit, and not think about these earthly things, these words that people are saying that don't really mean anything aside from what meaning you give them.
Yep. That's very well said. I see social media as a tool, and I think that every single tool, it doesn't decide what to do. The person decides what it does with the tool. And you can take everything from dynamite, the great benefits that we got from dynamite, the great benefits that we got from having cars, even from the great benefits that we have from having hands. You can do the most beautiful, amazing things with a hand, but in the same time, you can build guns with it. You can shoot people with it. You can punch people with it. You can, do a lot of bad things with your hands. And I think the most important thing we can do with it is not cut everybody's hands off or make people's hands shorter. It's to teach people at both sides of the table, both ends of the phone, how, first of all, how they should act, to understand that there is power in their words, to understand how to navigate social media, and to just give them perspective. Again, to what you were saying about culture, is about working towards educating people to build the type of culture where we are not doing that much bullying, and the people who bully, they're the outlaws. They're the people you ignore. They don't have any power. There was Rick and Morty saying, Rick was saying, I've seen what makes you cheer, so your boos mean nothing.
Facts.
We need to take the power that some of these bullies have whenever they do something bad, by having the proper culture built around it. And also, managing expectations. As you said, Instagram is more of a highlight reel of people's lives. People need to see that. People need to understand that. I'm not sure if what Norway or Sweden did was right. I don't know if you heard of it. They made it illegal for you to post a Photoshop picture of yourself without saying that it's Photoshopped. I'm not sure if that's the best solution, but it's a solution. And the problem with the educational system, and the problem with a lot of things in the world in general that are gray, is the fact that we don't know exactly which solution is best. So what we do is we bring no solution. And that's not very helpful, While we're sitting here and we're arguing about, what exactly can we do to prevent suicides, and what exactly is the solution, while people we're making an environment where people are afraid to come and innovate, where people are afraid to come and bring solutions to the table, because if you do, then you're taking away free speech, or you're putting people away in this thing, or you're taking power away from this person or that person or whatever. But in the same time, you're letting this unregulated Wild West go around that hurts more people than any one particular solution would. And also, you don't know till you try. I'm pretty sure when you tried doing, football for the first time, you made mistakes, you hurt yourself, you hurt someone, something bad happened, But we don't see unless we go and get the real life data. We can sit here and speculate all day about what this solution will do and what this solution will do. Let's, take the best ones and then try to test it out, implement it, get the data, get the responses from the people. You wouldn't be the football player that you are today if you wouldn't go out there and make mistakes. The worst strategy you can do is sit at a table 7 days a week and just think about how your first day as a football player will be, and just plan it out so there will be no mistakes the first time you do it. No, just go out there, do it, do a little bit of planning before, go out there and you do it. And by doing it, you just get better at it. You adapt to the situation that is happening around you. And that's, I think, the mentality that we need to have when it comes to education. That's the mentality that we need to have when it comes to solving problems with social media. because people don't know who is the perfect man or the perfect woman or the perfect person, you know? And so if we can't agree on who is the perfect person or what is the best way to live, then we cannot teach people what the best way to live is. And the result of that is people not learning what to do with their lives, people not having not at least a model that they can go and follow and, you know, put up against or put up with. So I think we need to start doing things. We need to start showing models. We need to stop speculating and arguing about it and just go and do something, make a mistake, adapt. You know, at least I see as the way I see it.
I am doing something. Me and my team are doing something. We're trying our best to come and deliver whatever we think that is the best solution. And I may be wrong. We may be wrong. It may not be the best solution, but we're doing something that is better than doing nothing and better than whatever we see in the world right now. And so if it's wrong, I'm willing to take a punch in the face for it. I'm willing to get up, adapt, and make a change. But we're not going to do that by just sitting around here and speculating and being afraid to not offend anybody.
You know, at least I see as the way I see it. When people will see that people innovators start doing something, then even if they make a mistake, they will help them learn, make it better, adjust, adapt.
Yeah. Shoot, that just makes me think of one quote. A skilled sailor is not made on calm waters.
Exactly.
Get out there, do it, get punched.
So sitting on the shore, yeah. So yeah, sitting on the shore and just planning out how you're gonna sail around and speculating about which wave is gonna come first and how you're gonna handle if this wave happens and that wave happens is not gonna make you a great sailor, and it's not gonna prepare you for what it's like to be in a boat. You just have to go out there and get it.
Shoot, that's it. That's it. I mean, that resistance is important. It is. If you want to build up, you know, whether it be the actual, you know, strength muscles or the mental muscles or the emotional muscles, you've got to go out there and experience, or you got to have the resistance. You got to put the weight on the bar. You got to get out there and experience life. You know, you're not going to become better or become the best version of yourself by, like you said, just sitting in there and thinking about it and planning it all the time. Because if anything, what you're going to get is the paralysis of analysis. The analysis paralysis, because you're just sitting there thinking about everything and not doing anything, bro. Go ahead, hop out there. You want to learn how to swim? Go hop in the deep end. You won't learn now. You're going to drown. But
that's how I learned how to swim, by the way. My dad threw me in the sea, and then he just walked away.
Humans can naturally swim.
Come back, or you know. So yeah, that was quite a situation. All right, so it's been 55 minutes. We should end it on a fun note. That was our first podcast ever, everybody. So please give us a like, give us a share, you know, support us in whatever way you think you could, and then also give us some advice on and what do you call it, advice and recommendations for what you think that we should be doing in our next podcast, which will be every Friday. Let's decide now. Should it be Friday, Wednesday, or Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday? What do you think? We're deciding live right here.
Sunday, like a little Sunday brunch. You know what I'm saying? A little Sunday brunch.
Okay. So when you have your Sunday brunch, you can watch this episode and many more. So see you. Bye-bye.
Let's build.